So we are going to work on finding the volume of a sphere today. So first off, just to make sure you know what a sphere is, what we're talking about is a ball. So the way that I draw a sphere is to draw a circle, and we'll pretend that looks really good. And then we need the center of the circle. And then I usually do a dotted oval in the middle to kind of give it some depth so that it looks like it's three-dimensional, because that's what it is. And then what you need to remember about a sphere, and it's kind of hard to maybe draw this, I don't know if I'll be able to, but from the center of the sphere to the outside edge of the ball is called the radius. And then from the center to the outside, if we were looking to the right, that's also the radius. And then from the center coming out towards us is also a radius. So in order to make a three-dimensional ball, we need to have a radius going up to the side and out to the front. So that's going to play into our formula. So what we're talking about is a sphere is a ball. So we're talking about a three-dimensional object. And again, just like when we were working with the volume of cylinders and cones, we cannot use the diameter. So we must use the radius. So we have to use the radius when we do this formula. But the actual formula is that the volume of a sphere is 4 pi r cubed divided by 3. Or some people will say 4/3 pi r cubed. And that actually is the same thing, because if we were just to put this over 1, then we would get 4 pi r cubed over 3. So the only measurement that we need in this formula is the radius. So just like we were doing the other day with the cylinders and cones, we're going to use 3.14 for pi, and then we are going to be using calculators. And then again, the units are cubed. So for our first example, let's say that, oh, that's awful. So we'll just pretend that this looks normal. Looks more like a potato, but anyways. And let's say we know that the radius is 5 centimeters, and we want to find the volume of this ball. All right, so we're going to use our formula here. So the volume is, so we have 4 times 3.14 for our pi, and then we have to multiply that by 5 cubed, and then don't forget that we have to divide our answer by 3. So if you grab your calculator, we mentioned the other day, let's see if I turn this off. Can you see it? Maybe not so well. Well, we'll try and do it this way. But I mentioned the other day, when you are using this calculator, the exponent button is located right here. So since we want to do cubes when we're doing volume of a sphere, then we're going to be needing this button right here. So I'm going to type this in exactly how I have it written. So 4 times 3.14 times 5, and then I'm going to press this exponent button to the third, and then I'm going to divide the whole answer by 3. So I have 4 times pi times the radius to the third power, and I'm going to divide it by 3. And then when I press enter, that gives me my answer. And we don't need all these decimals, so we'll just round to the nearest tenth. So the volume for this sphere is 523.3, and then again the units are still cubed because we're doing radius, radius, radius. So this is supposed to be a 2 here. Sorry about that. So there's our volume. All right, so let's try one more. Let's say, I'm going to change colors here. This time I'm going to just write it in words that we have a sphere with a diameter of 20 feet. So we're going to find the volume. So we have a sphere, but the diameter is 20 feet. All right, so again, we're going to use our formula. So we have that the volume is 4 times 3.14. Uh-oh, I think that's Max calling me. Sorry about that. Sorry. Okay, so 4 times 3.14 times the radius cubed. So if the diameter is 20 feet, then we know that the radius is 10 feet. So we need to multiply this by 10 cubed. And then we need to divide the entire answer by 3. So there's our 4/3 right there again. So I'm going to go to my calculator. And, you know, we know what 10 to the third is, so we could go ahead and just type that in, or you can write it as 10 to the third. But, all right, so we need to multiply, well, let me move it where you can see it, 4 times 3.14 times 10, and then this is the exponent button, to the third, and then we need to divide the whole answer by 3. So it looks like 4,186.7. So the volume for this sphere is 4,186.7, and then that would be feet cubed. So there's our volume. All right. Next one is I want to do one that's backwards, where I give you the volume and then you need to figure out the radius. So I'm going to tell you that the volume is 2,143.6 centimeters cubed. And the question is, what is the radius? So what is the radius? All right, so just like we did the other day, what we need to do is work backwards. So I'm going to fill in everything I know in the formula. So I know that the V is 2,143.6, and then that would be 4 times the pi times the radius cubed, but I don't know what the radius is, and then it's going to be divided by 3. So what happens here is that since we're working backwards, we have to do the opposite of everything. So instead of starting on this side, I'm going to start with this number over here. And then I need to do the opposite of dividing by 3. So I need to multiply by 3. And then I need to divide by 4 and then divide by pi. All right, so I'm going to take the calculator, 2143.6. First thing I'm going to do is multiply it by 3 since the opposite is dividing. And then, oops, hold on, didn't mean to do that. And then I want to divide by 4, and then I need to divide by 3.14. So again, I'm doing the opposite over here. So I need to divide by 4 and divide by 3.14 to get r by itself. But I also have to multiply by 3 since that's the opposite. So when I do that, I get the answer of 512. Okay, so that 512 represents r to the third. So we don't want r to the third, we just want r. So if you think back to your flashcards, what number multiplied by itself 3 times is equal to r? And hopefully you remember that that would be 8. So the radius is 8 centimeters. All right. Now, one other comment or example that I want to do, last one, is a hemisphere. And I'm pretty sure you know what I'm talking about, but just to make an illustration of it. So, for example 4, this is our last example. So, example 4. So, here is the water. So, beautiful water. And then, here is the sun. And I don't know if the sun is rising or setting, but here's the sun. And the deal is that we can only see half of the sun here. So, actually, it looks like I gave you less than half. So, let's just spread it out a little bit. So, if we're trying to figure out how much of the sun is visible, then we would want to take the volume of the sphere, but then we only want half of that. Okay? So, I'm going to tell you, let's say we're looking out over the water. I'm going to tell you that this distance right here is going to be 13 miles. All right. So, I want you to find the volume of what you can see. Ha, ha. Just kind of being silly. So, I wanted you to find the volume of the sun that you can actually see out there. So, what this means is that we're going to take our volume formula. So we need to do 4 times pi, and then multiply that by the radius cubed. So if the diameter is 13, that tells me that the radius is 6.5 cubed. And then we need to divide that by 3. But then, after we get that answer, we need to divide that answer by 2, because we're only seeing half of the sun. So, if you grab the calculator, and again, we can type all of this in just as we've written it here. So, 4 times 3.14 times 6.5, and again, we're going to use this button for the exponent to the 3rd power. And then I need to divide my answer by 3, but then I need to divide that answer by 2. So as you can see, if I can get it where you can see it, so I had the 4 times 3.14 times 6.5 cubed, and then I need to divide the answer by 3, and then divide the answer by 2. So then when we hit enter, that will give us the volume of the sun that we can actually see. So again, I'm going to round this just to 0.9. So the volume would be 574.9, and this is in miles. So I'm going to say miles cubed. All right. If you need to rewatch any of the examples, please do. If I went too fast, then just go back and replay it so that you can get what you need, and then you can pick up the practice worksheet.